Hello, hello, my beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining us. You are on KZAA 96.5 FM LP. You are with the incredible, amazing goddess Ana Rosa Rizzo and the other incredible mujerón, diosa, Siobhan Hoover, and the other, I'm flexing myself too, Ali Cortez on Que Madre Station, radio station. This is in partnership with Bienestar, CCC, and Warrior Mother. Thank you for joining us, and we have so many good topics for today. So here we go, Siobhan, bringing it back to you, girl.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about being independent woman and still needing to be cared for, needs versus wants. We're also going to talk about unconditional love versus unconditional tolerance, which I think is a lesson that we can all use. So, yes,
Bring it,
the
girl.
notion that independent women don't need to be cared for, I feel, is really strong these days. It's, oh, don't need a man, I don't need any help, I can do everything by myself. And I think that is damaging to women who are independent, who still feel that they want to be cared for.
Well, because none of us are islands. We are all in a web of mutuality. And like, for example, today, I am on a trick or treat hangover just because we stayed up really late and I am so tired and sleepy. And like this morning, if I had the luxury of staying in bed, I would have loved for my partner to like bring me a coffee, but we both, alas, have to get up and go do our work stuff. But there should be nothing wrong with that, right? Like to get babied maybe when I'm sick, like when I have a little sniffle, to have my partner bring me a cup of tea. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make me any less of a stronger, independent woman.
Absolutely.
Just my
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, asking for the help is something that, I know I've been guilty of, that is not asking for help. And kind of being like, oh, everything's fine, or I'm okay and I don't need, no, I'm all right. I'm all right. When in reality, it's like, no, I'm not okay. I need a hug. Or, no, I'm not okay. I need some coffee and I need to sleep in today. So in the past, I've been good about asking for sleep. That's always been my number one. I need rest. I need a nap. Can you handle the kids? But as of lately, there are things like around my house that I'm like, oh, actually, yeah, I do need help with that. Can you bring your drill over here and kind of get some things up on the walls for us? I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for the help when you need it. And I don't think that it makes you any less. You had said that doesn't make you any less of an independent person or a strong person. But I do feel that society recently, there's this, oh, you're an independent woman, but now you want to ask for help with this or that. And I feel like it puts a shame around it.
Totally. It's like, really, it's a balance. I mean, we're all humans and we have needs and we have wants. And I would even say, and here comes the therapist with like boom, 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 like, oh, well, guess what? If you don't know how to ask for help, it's not your fault. But it is a sign of trauma. It is a sign that, when you were little, you did ask, you did communicate that, and you were denied, you were rejected, you were ashamed. And so I think, we coming back to like the core of like, where did this happen? Why did this happen? And, kind of inserting curiosity to be like, oh, this is like inner child stuff. Like, what is a need versus a want? You had to kind of create everything that you needed was now a want, And so like, well, I if I want it, I have to go get it for myself. And I think that's also like someone that as first gen, it's like you really want that. You want stability, you want an education. You're gonna have to work really, really hard for it. And you have to do this on your own. And kind of dismantling that and being like, no, a need and a want, there's a fine line between them. But at the same time, it's like, it's desire. And a lot of our conversations are about like desire and what we, going back all the way to our roots, like what do you really desire? And what you desire is going to need help. It's gonna, like, nature can't do it on its own. It needs the soil, it needs the air, it needs all the elements. Same thing for us. We need a lot of that, like, nurturing and loving and safety. And like without the anxiety of like, am I going to get what I need? Or am I, like kind of like those attachment styles, like is it anxious? Is it avoidant? But all of that is because when we're younger, we couldn't really create a secure bond with someone that really needed to take care of us. And not to say that faulting them, it's just like, okay, so that happened. So now where do we go? How do we start healing this? And I'm curious, Siobhan, you said like, I'm getting better about, I need sleep. Reclaiming your sleep. How did you get to that point? What was the process for that?
Well, I've never been shy about asking for sleep. That's my number one thing. So that, that's always been a given. Like, hey, I just need some extra rest. Can you please just handle this? I know that my kids are bigger. It's really easy to say, hey, I'm gonna take a nap. Can y'all be quiet? And they're really respectful about sleep. But in general, I would say that, when my friends ask, how are you? Or if I'm sick and they're like, do you need anything? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Knowing damn well, I need some soup, I need some tea, I need some meds or some supplements or whatever. And being so afraid almost to ask for that help because I don't want to be a burden on anyone. And so I've also broken this down by therapy a little bit. As a child, I didn't want to be a strain or a burden on any of my family members. Like I didn't want them to have to go do anything extra for me. And so I don't, it's been a long road with this one because it is so difficult to say, yes, I need help. And in previously, it was like, I don't know why. It was like, I believed that I wasn't a strong person if I couldn't do everything on my own, and it's like, well, no, I'm not a superwoman. I like to pretend like I am, but in all reality, I'm human and I need, I need connection. I need care. I need a little spoiling from time to time. So, I have been in a place, I would say within the last year, that I've been able to say, hey, can you come over? I just need company. Hey, do you have a minute to talk? I just need to vent. And it feels good. It actually feels more of a strength to be a little bit more vulnerable. And I don't know if that's age, like seeping in here, or if it's lessons learned, but
And the therapy's working.
in the therapy, love my therapist. Yeah, no, she's really helped me in realizing that it's not a weakness to be able to say that you need help. It's more, like I said, it's more of a strength than anything. So I'm learning and unlearning a lot.
That inner child is deep. I felt exactly the same way as a kid, not wanting to be a burden, not wanting to ask for anything. So I'm learning a lot from my daughter Gloria, because she always asks me when she needs something. And if I ever don't hear her, she's like, Mommy, you didn't hear me. Oh. And I'm like, oh. And I can't play it off because she's like, in the future, if you don't hear me, or if you do hear me, can you please at least say a word of affirmation so that I know that you heard me?
How
Yes.
beautiful is that? She's like, I need acknowledgement, Mom. How
She's a
insightful.
wise little
She's only-
queen.
She's
Ooh.
only 7.
She's 7.
She knows what she wants. Yeah, she's such a teacher for me.
How does that make you feel, Anna, to just to see, hear her and just really like learn from her? 'Cause I mean, just from the story you're telling, I'm learning from her. That's beautiful.
I just feel blessed to be her mom every day.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is also like, So we have to get to a place where we're very intimate with our own selves, like have an intimate relationship with ourselves and trust ourselves. Um, because they go hand in hand, for you to be honest and to be vulnerable, you have to trust yourself, especially, and that's a brave ask. That's going to take a lot of courage, and to build up to that. It's not going to be perfect right away, but to build up to like, oh my gosh, I can be honest with myself. I can be vulnerable with myself, have those inner dialogues myself first, especially when I've been hurt so much by the people around me, whether it was unconscious or consciously done. To have that intimate relationship, like a very special, trusting bond, knowing and accepting. And I think that goes to the other part, Siobhan, about like tolerance, knowing and accepting that people around you can hurt you. And that's why it's so important to go back to you and being like, well, I won't. And I will listen to myself, and I will be generous to myself, and I will listen to, what's going on for me. And have that like intimate relationship with my body, my mind, my spirit, my soul, my emotions, like they provoke so much. So I
And
want my
really, yeah, not allowing that self-doubt to seep in either is, to be mindful of that is huge. So, and then it bleeds into relationships in a way too. I've said these words in the past, like, I don't need you, I don't, I- all attitude and everything. I don't need you. I want you,
oh,
but I feel like, I don't know, it was more of a like an endearing thing to me, is that like I don't, I certainly can take care of myself. Sure, I want someone here, but to me it feels like stronger, right, when you want someone versus when you need someone. I don't know.
profound, girl. And I mean, what a compliment. And maybe, but it depends on the person, right? Because if the other person is like, well, I want you to need me,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, okay, maybe you need to go work on that. But to want you is like a desire, like, oh my God, I want you. That's like such a compliment.
Yeah.
And it invokes like that, like we're about to, embark on this really like bumpy and yet beautiful journey together because we want to.
Yes.
And sometimes it's bumpy for a good reason, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yay.
Release the stress.
Right. Well, when you feel, comfortable and cared for and safe and secure, it brings on a certain level of intimacy that is,
Yes.
yes.
But they need to
Yeah.
believe that.
Gotta earn it.
Yeah, and that only gets like better and better because you know yourself too. Like, these are, these are my limits, and this is where I really want to explore. So it could be, really translated in all areas of your life. Like the more you get to know yourself, the more you're like, yeah, I like it like this. I don't like it like that. And
Yeah.
and then like having, because I mean, for me, like it took me a lot of courage to learn how to use my voice. It took a lot, and every time it was like a muscle that I had to exercise, and it got really, there was so many times that I just couldn't, and that you hear me stutter. But you know what, now it gets better and better. So for anybody that's like listening right now on KZAA 96.5 FMLP, and you're listening to Que Madre radio station in partnership with Bienestar CCC and Warrior Mother. You're listening to Siobhan Hoover, Ana Rosa Rizzo, I love saying your name so much, and Ali Cortez.
I like it when you say my name too. You say it the best of anybody.
Yeah.
I just love it.
A lot of
like
people don't
this.
know how to roll their R's.
Ana Rosa Rizzo.
A roll forward and a roll backwards though, too. It's like,
But yeah. Oh.
love it.
Smooth. But yeah, we're definitely talking about these really cool conversations about like, we're going into like intimacy. We're talking about trust, and you want to have those really luscious relationships and quality relationships. The first one really has to be reclaiming the one with yourself, is kind of what I've been learning along the journey.
Well, today's All Saints Day, and then tomorrow is Dia de los Muertos. And I feel like the topic that we're going to delve into next around tolerance and love is a really profound one, because especially when you think of the finiteness of life, I guess for me, when I'm like thinking about my loved ones, I don't want to have regrets either when I pass or when they pass. And so, like, how do we love people the best while at the same time respecting ourselves enough to know when we cannot tolerate certain behaviors, you know?
Because unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance.
There you go.
And
Say more.
oh, I know.
I know you have more there. Share.
I do.
Bring
yeah.
it.
Well, I think that again, the notion or the idea of unconditional love is that you're going to be there no matter what. Okay. And you're going to accept this person as they are. And you're just going to love them. However, when there are toxic behaviors or certain levels of disrespect or ways that someone continues to hurt you, and you've communicated to them, when you do this, it hurts me here because it makes me feel cruddy, whatever it is. When you disrespect me, it really hurts my feelings and I need you to stop this behavior. And it doesn't. And this can be relationships with family members, spouses, friends, kids, whoever it is. If the behavior continues, I'm talking about adult children, not kids, but if that behavior continues, you can love people from a distance and still hold that love for them, but not be accepting of behaviors that don't align, with your spirit, really. I mean, that came heavy for me in a relationship with a partner, and then also with some really close family members that I really struggled with the idea that I had to keep in contact with them because I love them. Well, because that's it's your mom. Oh, because it's your dad, because it's your sister, because it's your brother. You'll hear that a lot from family members. So I don't know, how do you two feel about that whole thing? It's a lot.
I got a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
Go for it, Anna.
There are a lot of feelings, and I feel like I can figure that out. It's still hard, but I can figure that out with people that don't control my paycheck. It's almost even harder when it's coworkers, right? That's like a category of people or your bosses, right? Like instances where you feel disrespected and harmed. How upfront can you be about it without actually being worried about getting fired or having to quit? And I hear my daughter talking, so I'm gonna check on that real quick.
I need a little love bug.
Anything for you, little wise queen.
I know. Sweet.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah. I mean, like, I think one of the things that I've learned too about, kind of linking this all to like the intimacy, right? Like there's levels of intimacy, and that's going to, really kind of cement the kind of acceptance you're going to have and the ability to set boundaries. And it's early on, that you learn this, but like one of the things is the lowest level. Hi, darling. Hello, little queen. Mwah. Good to see you, corazón de melón.
Tell them what you were yesterday for Halloween.
For Halloween, I was Pikachu. I moved you.
Love
My
Pikachu.
ears moved
Did they really? How
up
cool.
and down. Up and down.
Oh, nice. You had like the deluxe costume. I've had the ones where they just flop like this. And I just look like a puppy.
Real ones.
I love it.
So we're
Do you
talking
have a
about
look,
the
Candy?
value of respecting ourselves and making sure the people who love us also respect us. Right?
Mhm. Yes, 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 exactly. And that, it's talking about like sometimes we've learned that just by proximity, kind of like what Siobhan was talking about, and then we take that into the workplace of like family systems, and then the systems in our workplace of tolerance, right? So it's like, well, proximity, that's it. That's all you need to, just have a relationship with that person. But then there's like a higher level of intimacy that creates like really rich, relationships, and that's how you know that you're like, okay, surrounded by. And the highest level of intimacy is also, like the willingness to be vulnerable, the courage to be vulnerable, um, the really coming down to like being vulnerable and sharing that and feeling safe to share that. That's a high level of like relationship right there. But
Yeah.
we also can get stuck in the like, well, it's by proximity, because that's what we were taught. I remember hearing like, oh, you have to love that person because that person is a really important family member. It's like,
Mhm.
but that person is really abusive to my grandma. Like, why do I have to use the word love? So it translated to tolerate, and then you grow up with like, okay, so love is tolerance, um, you know, and then you grow up and you're like, wait, this isn't working for me.
Right. You're like, well, wait a second. This doesn't feel like love.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like love when you're continuously hurt in one way or another. Or but then there's also this part of it where you sometimes it isn't you. It's like you can't take things so personally, because everyone is kind of on their own journey and going through their own things. Talking about not taking it personally, and um, kind of saying, okay, well, perhaps they need healing on their side, and so stepping back and allowing space for that is a way to also love them,
Mhm.
um,
Loving from
but
afar.
maintaining those boundaries, which boundaries are hard to set with those who you really love and adore, and even like you said, coworkers and bosses and all of that too. It's difficult.
Mhm.
What you said though, I don't think I ever realized it in just the way that you explained it growing up, how people teach you that if someone has this close proximity to you, that not only do you have to love them, but you also have to tolerate them. And then we grow up with that. And then that's why we end up in toxic relationships that last way too long, because we think, oh, well, I love them. So that must mean I have to tolerate their behaviors too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it's a pattern that we continue. But and I love, but this is why like our wise mind really is like, I give so much credit to our body, because our body knows, like our body will say, this is not it. Cognitively, yeah, okay, you learned that and that was instilled in you, and that's a kind of like a tape, but a script. And then, but your body's always saying something else. And it's like, that's the part where we're like, shh, 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 no, no, no.
Quiet it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the suppression of it. And I love, like really paying attention to our body and what it's saying, and like listen generously to it, which is hard because there's so many distractions. There's so much that takes me away from my body. So I have to be very like, sometimes I feel like I strain myself. Okay, what do you want, body? What's going on for you? Because
Mhm.
it's still a muscle that's being exercised, that's being developed.
Absolutely. I had a family member who, her adult children would take advantage, and just super high levels of stress, and it made her really sick. She ended up, having a stroke. She's fine now. Um, but at the time, the stress that other people were imposing on her, I was like, well, that was a direct result of what was happening, in life. So, relating that to, you can physically make yourself sick. You can have ailments that come into your body if there are these stressors, these outside stressors that are, clogging up your environment, your internal environment, it's like ugh, all that pollution comes out in one way or another.
Mm.
I love thinking of ourselves as ecosystems too, right? Because yeah, we talk about the pollution out in the world, but what pollution do we have inside of ourselves in our brains, and that's clouding up our heart?
Yes.
Definitely. I think I've used that metric to, and since I started using that metric of like, in Spanish, que te contamina y que te vitamina, like what
Ooh,
contaminates you and what's a
damn, girl.
vitamin. I've noticed a
Say that
change in
again?
like, yeah, contamina versus vitamina, which like in English, contamina means contaminate and vitamina means like, vitamin. And vitamins are supposed to like supplement and boost, right?
Yes.
Your immune system, areas that just need more, I don't know, you get all, just your immune system. And it's as easy as how you even stand. Have you seen those videos about like, because a lot of this conversation is about self-worth, and
Yeah. Let me sit up straight.
and so I just learned something really interesting. There's been more conversations about the vagus nerve, right? Like that part of you that helps like hit the brake, slow down, especially in a state of like a lot of like stress. And so one of the things I didn't realize is that posture helps activate that part of you that releases like kind of like disconnects you from the stress, from being so tuned to the stress, external stressors. Because what happens is like when you're leaning and you're hunching over, right, like you're actually kind of squeezing that nerve that's like from your brain all the way down to your gut. And so that nerve system right there, when you're like slouching or you're like this or leaning in, because there's a lot of teaching of like lean into conversations, lean in, and it's like actually put that crown back on, because that's actually going to help you like find yourself, like slow down and make decisions you want to make, and like not flood as much.
Mm.
I just and Siobhan does this like, in our workshop, she has like the, our other little queens, stand in like the Wonder Woman pose. And like, it always felt so good. And now I have like more understanding why too. It's amazing.
Standing in your power, literally standing in your power.
Mm-hmm.
And also for the vagus nerve, there's a breathing exercise that I practice. So it's 4-7-8. So you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 7, and you release for 8. And sometimes when you're stressed, when your body's stressed, typically you're same thing. You're in kind of inward. You're tense, and a lot of times we just stop breathing, and we don't even realize that we're holding our breath. And so,
That happens to me a lot.
right? Yeah. Or when like I train with women at the gym, and so sometimes I'll like look and I'll be like, are you breathing? Breathe. And they're like, oh gosh, and they didn't even realize that they were holding their breath, is because when things get hard and when things get tough, the body, I don't know what that reflex is, but for whatever reason, we hold our breath. So when you're stressed, having a bad day, you might find yourself not breathing. And a nutritionist that I had worked with in the past, that she was telling me about this vagus nerve, and I was like, oh, okay. But it's helped so much. So with sleep, when I can't sleep, I'll do it like once or twice and I'm out, and I didn't realize how calming that can be until I thought, oh, well, that's why they tell you to count sheep, and I don't know if it's just that you are concentrating on something, kind of taking your brain off of everything else that's going on in your mind. Or if it's that you're more focused on your breathing and you're allowing your body to actually relax. Whatever the mojo is behind it, the magic, the science, I totally believe in it. So yeah.
And sheep are fluffy.
Yes. Yeah.
So they make you think of clouds.
Clouds and
soft.
soft, gentle, comfort.
No, but that breathing thing, like I feel like we cannot stress how important breathing is. Like every single episode, I want to talk about it, because even for my journey in working out and doing personal training, I just noticed what a difference it is when I breathe into like what I'm doing versus when I don't. Like there was this exercise that I was doing that felt impossible. And then my trainer said, "Wait, but are you breathing?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not." And then as soon as she told me how to breathe into the exercise, it was super easy.
Yeah.
And just that one thing made the difference.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a very important like component of our like our ecosystem, and to be reconnected with it and reclaiming it, it takes time. It takes time to reclaim it and to really put into practice, while we're also like dismantling like other patterns that we've learned and patterns that we've learned from other people, to tolerate, and I think the breath is a really good metaphor of like, if you're tolerating, then you're probably not breathing.
Yeah.
Right, like what are you tolerating, what are you suppressing? One of the things that ended up happening for me when I was younger, and I didn't even know it until so probably a couple years that I really understood what happened, was that I used to suffer from like severe panic attacks. Like I had like a panic disorder, and so at least I would have panic attacks at least 3 to 4 times a day, since I was little, all the way to like my adolescent years. And so I just, and there was very little conversations about it at the time, so it was kind of one of those things I just like, okay, well, this is me, like I'm just someone. And for some reason, how life works, my parents were really big about like, we have a vision of you playing piano, so they put me for years in piano lessons. And for years, I never learned a song. Like it was just something that caused a lot of panic for me. It's interesting how that was kind of like perpetuating that too. And so I had a teacher who was like, "Why are you doing this, Allie?" She like, she was like, what's up with this? You don't learn. You obviously don't like this. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just told to be here, and I'm just here, and I suck at this. I'm terrible at this. And she's like, "Well, what if we started doing some singing classes? Because I hear you hum. You hum a lot." And I was like, "Oh, that's true. I do hum." And I was like, "I don't know. Like, my family's not going to be happy about that. They really want me to do piano lessons." And she's like, "Let's just give it a try." So kind of secretly, instead of doing the piano classes, we started doing the vocal classes. And I noticed that my panic attacks started decreasing. And so what happens is, because when you're doing your singing classes, you're using the vibratum from like your chords, plus also that your diaphragm, which is connected to your vagus nerve. And so in a way, I treated my anxiety, the severe like generalized anxiety, panic disorder, with singing classes. And I'd never really understood that until later on, when I started studying it more, where I was like, oh my God, I treated myself with, well, with, the collaboration of, my teacher and, my parents paying for it. What ended up happening is that we ended up having a recital, and I started freaking out. I was like, I don't know any songs, but I've been singing for a couple months. And she's like, "Well, it's time for you to sing." And I was like, my parents don't know about this. Oh no. And so I remember telling my parents, I was like, to the recital, I was like, "So I'm not gonna be playing the piano." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "I'm gonna be singing." And they were like, well, they basically told me like, "We're expecting you to fail." And I remember just getting up there and just being like, "Well, here we go, failure time, probably have a panic attack after this." And I remember singing, and like my parents at the end were like, "Oh my gosh, what do we have to do? We have to continue doing this. Like, you have to continue singing."
Yeah.
And so it was courageous and brave. And I totally give so much credit to like, that's why like having trusted adults when you're growing up that see you, that really see you and say, "Hey, try this, that's healthy for you." Very, very important in our lives. So she ended up becoming a really important like person in my life that shifted things for me. So that's a story about, my past and how I treated anxiety with singing classes. And humming is another way to reduce like that like distress when you're having, and activate that like calmness
Yeah.
in us.
I felt myself holding my breath while you were telling that story.
I know, me too.
That's what happened.
But that's so great because that's the epitome of like strengths-based learning and strengths-based leadership, because that's why I never want to be like the kind of parent that over programs their kids' schedule without even their consent. Because I know so many parents like that, unfortunately, that like their kids' schedule is always packed and the kids don't even like what they're learning. They're just doing it because their parents signed them up. And yeah, like I'd
It's so
rather,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Like,
tell my kids, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, because I don't want to pay for it if you're not going
that's
to
the thing
enjoy
too.
it,
These classes are super expensive. I'm like, how
Mhm.
can these parents even afford this?
Yeah.
No, I know. I remember just being like, also feeling bad. Like, I'm like, I don't know, piano. You're spending money on me. That, like, I know they were working super hard, but the push and the expectations was causing a lot of that anxiety. Like, I'm like, well, I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me.
Well, I would have never guessed that, you had such a hard time with it because I hear you sing now. I know you had a few performances in the past or like pre-COVID or whatever. And I was like, ooh, Allie, yes. I feel like we need to go back and watch those
Well, maybe
videos.
you should sing our theme for the show.
Ooh,
We've been
yes.
trying to figure out what to do for our theme so that we always have constant
Oh,
theme music, because we don't
yeah.
want to have issues with like copyright. But if
Mhm.
you do it, then it's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, so, okay. All right. So now we're also going to write our song. I love
Yes. I'm a little tuned.
it.
Um, one thing that came up for me too when you were telling this story was like allowing your kids to fail, but um, also kind of backing them in that, and and making sure that they know that you support them even if they do fail. For example, my daughter was doing guitar. Now she's like painfully shy when it comes to performances. She doesn't like being the center of attention. She does not like to compete. She's very good at gymnastics. They wanted to put her on the competition team. She was like, nope, absolutely not. You know, um, so in any case, she was taking guitar lessons, and then they had a recital. And she said, "Well, what if I mess up?" And I said, "Well, if you mess up, you mess up, and you just keep going, and it's fine." And she's like, "But it's not going to be fine." And she's having this whole breakdown because she did not want to perform. Right? She's like, "I just don't want to do it." And I said, "Well, it's mostly just to see what you've learned." I said, "Just look at me and pretend like we're at home, like you've been practicing this whole time. You got it down. It's fine." So we get, to the place, and she's still freaking out. Hey, girl, it's gonna be great. And she gets on stage and she fumbles, a few of her notes, and you could just see her whole body just like slumped. And I was sitting there, and I go like this, like sit up tall, like I made my posture big, and I gave her like a nod, and she started over again, and she continued, but she came off the stage and she was like in full tears. And I said, "Listen, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, but she has, you know, um, she's put so much pressure on herself that she doesn't want to fail." And I'm like, "Oh, girl, there's so much wrapped in this because I know I'm a perfectionist and I didn't mean to pass it to you." But so I'm seeing things in her that I'm like, I'm healing in me, but I'm still learning. So she's going to still be learning. And it's, but I'm hoping to be a support and allowing, you know, uh, her to make mistakes and how to handle them with grace for yourself,
Mm.
So um, I think that she learned a little bit from it, and she had another recital and it's fine, but never am like, if you make a mistake, fine. You pick up, you carry on. And I think sometimes kids just need to hear that. They just need to hear it's
100.
okay to mess up. Okay.
The world continues.
Yes.
Yes. I forgot what was an interview with a very famous artist, and very famous, but I don't remember who it is. But they said that one of the things that helped them become excellent in their skills is that the conversation at the table was always, how did you fail today? Rather than like, how'd you do today? Right. And like kind of setting up like, I want you to fail. I want you to fail because it's learning, you know, and like
Yeah.
really priming that that message of like, what does it even mean to fail? What is the definition of failure? Because I feel like it changes it so much. And you know, I was thinking as you were sharing that, I was like, gosh, yeah, like what is the definition of failure? And who wrote that off, you know, as like failure means mistakes.
Yeah. My son was in second grade. He said, yeah, when you make mistakes, you create new, what do you say, new paths in the brain. And so it's actually learning and it's okay to make mistakes. I was like, you're all right
True.
with me, little guy. You're all right.
Mm-mm.
You know.
Because then you know what doesn't work, so that
Yeah.
you've eliminated possibilities and now you try other things.
Yes.
Mm, mm. I love that. I love that. I hope that everybody that's listening right now is really like loving this conversation because it's so juicy. It's so good. I mean, we're going inward, outward. We're going zoom in, zoom out. Like, you know, we're talking about it all. You're listening to KZAA 96.5 FM on FMLP on Que Madre station in partnership with Bienestar, CCC, and Warrior Mother with Ana Rosa Rizzo, Siobhan Hoover, and Ali Cortez. So glad you're here with us today and really grateful that you're listening with us. And if you have any questions or you want to know more about, you know, our stories or want to have more insight about the topics we're talking about, reach out to us. We're so
Or if you have suggestions for our photo shoot, we're gonna do a little photo shoot for promo materials on Tuesday, I think we said. And so, you know, if you have any ideas about what to wear or cute places where you could get accessories, let us know.
Yeah.
I'll put it on our Instagram because I know I'm excited, but also like, wait, what do I wear?
I was saying, yeah. Never know what to wear. Topic, you know, what do you know, what do people want to listen in on it, you know, what can we talk about? It would be fun if we take callers, right?
We used to be able
Yes.
to when we did the show in the station.
Yes.
But I'm trying to think of how we can fix that issue. We could do a live studio audience.
Yes. Yeah,
We
we
could.
do.
That'd be fun. That would be fun. Ooh, conversations that would happen. Well, I think that's, you know, that's definitely been the goal to set this as like, you know, what Anna, you started off with Jessica is so special and beautiful, and like the continuance of like, this is a safe place to really talk and dialogue about like the vulnerabilities of just life and you know, being all these, you know, going against the archetype of like what we're supposed to be and breaking molds and different perspective and fresh eyes on this. It's really healing. So I really honor the what you and Jessica created and put together, and letting, you know, for me, like being part of this is so special and so sacred too, to continue this, you know, like sisterhood, the relationships, the talking about, you know, very vulnerable topics. And I feel like each time we just get deeper and deeper, and you know, I think we're hopefully, you know, for our listeners, you know, saying like, yeah, these conversations are real. I had someone reach out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, when I listen to you guys, like I feel like I'm there, and like it makes me want to talk about these vulnerable things. And I said, yeah, that's what it's about, you know, that these conversations are real. Because we've developed that, but that doesn't mean everybody you know, has had exposure to what it feels like and looks like to have these very, you know, deep conversations.
Yes.
Well, I know folks hear us on the air, but there's actually also has been a physical, like personal component to Que Madre in the past. Like we would do annual holiday potlucks. Last year we did it at Reverend Julia Hamilton's house, and the year before that we did it at Jess Alvarez Parfrey's house. So if we want to do that again, we can start planning for it now. We just have to figure out a location, and everyone just brings something, so it's not a big like financial expense, but it's just a chance for women in the community to get together and spend some quality time.
Yes, count me in.
I know. I love a celebration. You have to find ways to celebrate life, you know. You mentioned, you know, life is short, and and so finite, and it's taking the time out. I know I work like crazy. I know Allie does too. You're super busy. Everybody's busy with their everyday lives, and to carve out that time to come together and have fellowship, with your sister friends and or family or whoever it is, I'm always like, yes, let's have a celebration. Yes, food and drinks and music and that sort of thing is, gotta find a balance in life sometimes. And I feel like that's one of the most important things for me is to be in community and fellowship with my loved ones. So
Mhm.
Yeah, we can even pick a park.
yeah,
Or take a park is where we're having the Dia de los Muertos celebration. By the time you hear this, we will have just had it the day before, but that's a good place to congregate too, or yeah, just someplace that's hopefully free. The best price.
I know.
Definitely. I love it.
We'll make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I would love to what if we offered I have a friend who does sound bathing. And so, and so and she's a yoga instructor too now. And I love the direction that a lot of our friends have taken. I'm really proud. Gosh, like just so proud. I've been having conversations with so many, in this space now where I'm kind of catching up also socially with friends and just seeing the what's been kind of blooming, and from the hardships we've had and this really this call that many of us are really taking seriously to do the healing, to lean into these conversations and then bring back, that medicine for ourselves and then for the next generation. I feel like the seriousness of it, but also not as heavy either.
Because there's more of us carrying it.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. There's more collective in this. And just I love the gathering because especially for women, that's where stories are really powerful. Yesterday, I went to help kind of set up some of the altares, and I was talking to a grad student from UCSB, and her whole dissertation is on women during that revolution in Mexico and the untold stories. And she directed me to all these books and stories about how women during that time were, and we know this intuitively, we know this, but to hear it, from someone who's studying and she, these are the books and this is the content that's really showing and highlighting rescuing stories is what she said. And I felt that's so powerful. It's oh my gosh. And just she told me a lot about, different women in the revolution and what they did, and how it's not just from one story, the Adelitas, or it's it's so much more broad. And I just walked away feeling that energy, and that was just her telling me stories that she has read and that she's looking into. So I love gatherings because we were just cutting papel picado and we're just talking, and I was stringing it, and as we're doing this with our hands, she's telling me these stories and I'm just feeling it and absorbing all that empowerment.
That's powerful.
I know. Well, that's how all the wives' tales, all the stories, and all that was passed along.
But isn't it crazy how they belittle old wives' tales?
Yes.
It's just whatever, when it's that's our oral history and it means something. With the yerbas and how we talk about healing each other with herbs.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually real. So how about you quiet your mouth a little bit?
Right. A funny side note on this. It was I went to horror nights at Universal Studios.
My husband's so mad because I won't go to that because I'm so scared.
I was scared. I was terrified. So I was facing the fear, right? And then there's one of they're mazes that you walk through, and it was scary, but it wasn't as terrible as I thought it was going to be. But there was a La Llorona thing, and I was I don't want to go on this one, guys. I don't want. And they're
because
why
this
not?
one's real.
That's what I said. I said no because she's real, and I don't want to go. I don't want to see it.
Everybody has a Llorona story. Everybody.
I know, but I did. I braved it. I didn't close my eyes through the whole thing. It got past a fear, but it's like, yeah, I know, yeah. Certain things you're like, you're like, no, I believe in this. Something that's been told, this story that's been told for years and years and years. I'm not going in.
Oh, gosh, I'm La Llorona. I cry a lot.
Wow. I
I'm
cried
La
a lot
Llorona.
of happy tears, which is
Oh my gosh, I just went to a wedding on Sunday. I have not cried this much at a wedding in a very long time. From the moment that the dad let his daughter like go at the altar and they gave each other a kiss, I was like,
Aw.
It started pouring.
Like, that's a whole other topic. We need to talk about crying. We need to talk about like, that release that happens when it's like joyful or when it's not, or when it's grieving. Because the story of La Llorona is so interesting. Like the origin story was because during the revolution, I believe it was or one there was like a conflict, and so the men were pulled out, and so there was a woman that was expecting a baby, and her partner was killed in the war, and she just couldn't stop crying and crying and crying, and then she lost her baby from all the grief, and so she kept crying and crying and crying. So that's how they ended up calling her La Llorona. And I was like, that's the story of like severe grieving, and now it's like this, like a tale of kind of like ooh, it's scary to cry. I don't know. I read too much into some things like this.
So we
that I'm
need to
like,
decolonize La Llorona. Is that what you're saying?
yes, yes, we do.
yes. Because like in our own right, like stigmas around mental health and like the expression of emotions, like ay, La Llorona, and so it's such a scary story and a tale, and like, it just ended up converting into like this, like it's so bad to cry. And if you hear crying, you should be scared.
Well, I know I'm going to be crying later today because it's the first year that I feel brave enough to go to Adelita's grave and decorate her altar for El Dia de los Angelitos. So I have my cempasúchil ready at my house to go pick up on my way. And yeah, I know it's going to be hard, but it's like a big milestone for me.
Yes. Well, I'm with you in heart and spirit, love, and there's a lot of love going your way. Yeah. Oh, yeah. How are you feeling?
How am I feeling? Nervous.
Yeah.
And kind of ready, and also yeah, mostly nervous. Seriously. Trying to be like upbeat about it, but it's just so hard to go to her grave because it's so like that reminder of how finite, because for me, I like keep her alive with me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's the way it should
I
be. I don't feel
Absolutely.
that someone gave me something when my dad passed, and it says where there is love, there is life. And it just reminded me that love is an energy, right? It continues, and it never dies. And so that's something that along with acceptance and all of these other things, but it helped me heal in a way, because I was like, they're right, like the love continues, and it's such a beautiful thing. And my son was like 2 when my dad had passed, but they were very connected. And I think it was like Thanksgiving, on holidays, I get a little emotional, and I was crying, and I was trying not to let my kids see. And then finally I was just like, why am I hiding from them? It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
And my daughter said, well, it's okay, Mom, because he always what did she say? His love is always in your heart.
Oh.
I was like, and these little profound things that these children say sometimes are just so heartfelt, but it's true. It's like, it's that energy, it stays with you always. And so they do stay alive, and the love is still there. It's still prominent, and it never goes away.
And honoring that journey, it's a long journey. People want to, like, okay, we're done, like, let's go on to, it's like, no, like, the same thing, like, with, like, the whole Llorona story, right? It's like, she was grieving. Of course she was going to grieve for a long time. And just like, and
Straight up, it's a forever thing. Like, I don't think I'll ever stop grieving.
Yeah.
But it's that I still love her.
Exactly. Yes. Where there is grieving, there is love, and it's like we've been scared to go there, and a lot of it has to do, like, that's why I really I love, like, Dia de los Muertos, because it's like it's a whole different significance of love. It's about connection. It's about, wisdom that's still always present, and we can always connect. But colonization really took that away. So this is like to honor, and Anna, and Siobhan, for the losses, right? That, honor our journey wherever we're at, and really just, having that support system, and, that I think sisterhood is so important, because I think major kudos to, like, men who are, like, supportive on, the the emotional journey too, and who are feeling their own feeling and doing their own healing work. But I think we definitely have, a heads up on that one, where it's like, hey, we got you. We're here for you, soul sister and spirit and body. Like, we can embody that for each other.
Absolutely.
So if there's anything, Anna, that, I'm here for you, and and thank you for sharing. And you never know when someone is listening right now and being like, oh my gosh, I can grieve too. I can be in that journey. And then it could be liberating too.
I once read that grief is love persevering through our bodies, and that's why we feel it physically. We feel it move throughout, is because it's the love. It's like, it's constant. It's always flowing. So yeah.
Well, I know
Like
there's
that.
this whole, like, thing about women not having stretch marks when they have babies.
Oh,
But for me, like, I love my stretch marks because that's evidence that she was here,
yes.
like, it's a physical manifestation. Like, yes, she was here.
I feel like,
Yes.
when I have stretch marks, I was like, well, they earned it. We've earned
Our tiger
these
stripes.
scars. That's it. You've earned the stripes. You've earned the scars. You've earned the, I used to take self-defense classes, and in that we would get, like, bruised, and you'd have all these, this bump
Battle
came
scars.
from, it's like battle scars. Yeah, it is. And like, that's how I think of childbirth, is that your body goes through, something very intense, and it's a good reminder of how physically, emotionally, and mentally strong you are.
Yeah.
So
How our bodies are portals to, like, expansion, to growth, like, yeah. All right, my darlings. Well, I mean, there's so much we definitely are still going to be talking about, and being the little Debbie Downer, it's time to wrap up our program for today. But thank you so much for listening. You've been tuning into KZAA 96.5 LPFM, and you're listening to Que Madre in partnership with Warrior Mother, Bienestar, CCC, with Siobhan Hoover, Ana Rosa Rizzo, and Ali Cortez. I'm just going to say thank you for listening, and I pass it on to my sisters for their last words for this episode.
Always, I'm just honored to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And since this is airing the day after Dia de los Muertos, I just want to remind you that your loved ones are with you still. Presente.